All right, what's up, guys? I was asked to make a tutorial video on how I'm making the 3D tutorial or 3D intro videos that I have been making for Sky and such like that. So I'm just gonna go ahead and teach you guys really quickly. So you're gonna start off in After Effects, and the very first thing you're gonna want to do is go to Composition and create your new composition, your 1920 by 1080 composition at 60 FPS. You can do 30 if your clips are 30, obviously you would want to, or else like if you make a composition at 60 and your clips are 30 FPS, your clips will play at half speed. Um, so 60 FPS, and you want to edit 60 FPS clips, they look better anyways. So okay, now you have this new composition, 1080p, 1 minute and 37 seconds long for some reason. That's, I guess, my last video that I created a new composition for. So now what you want to do is you want to just drag your clip into the video. And now you have this sitting on top of your video. It's a little bit too zoomed in at the start, so I like to only use the half or the second half of this sort of clip. So if you, sorry, I was going a little bit too fast there. Drag your timer indicator up to wherever you think you would want your video to start. Hit Control, Shift, and D at the same time, and it will cut your clip like that. And now this is the part we want to get rid of, so click and delete. And now just drag your time indicator back, click on your clip again, and click left on your bracket, or left bracket on your keyboard, sorry. Doing it manually is a little bit hard. You would obviously have to either line it up that way, or you can hit shift and drag, and as soon as it gets close enough, it'll auto snap to it. But I just find it easiest to just, if it's back here, just drag your position thing back and just hit left bracket on your keyboard, and it automatically drags it to where this little marker is. So now that we have this, it's literally exactly 5 seconds long. What you want to do is right click on it and go to track camera. Open up advanced and click detailed analysis. This will create the best version of the track that it can. Not doing detailed analysis, I've seen it skew, I've seen it move back and forth while the video is going. Obviously looks very unprofessional. So we're just gonna let this go. I don't plan on making any cuts in this video. I do apologize if that makes it a little bit too long for you, but I'm just going to let this do the 299 frames. I have a lot of projects to be working on, and this is already taking up some of my time. So I'm going to get to those after this. And obviously creating a detailed analysis does make this take a little bit longer, obvious reasons. It's doing a better job. I have not actually dived into the details on what detailed analysis actually does, like within the patch notes or whatever, when they added it or whenever they explained what detailed analysis will do. I've never actually looked at that, but I have seen the difference between using it and not using it, and it is definitely worth the extra 45 seconds, I'd say, that it will take to create a detailed analysis. I promise you that. So once this is done, you'll see that there will be a bunch of little crosshair looking targets all over my screen. And that's where our next part will start after this solve camera is done. Alright, so you can see the solve camera is now done, and you can see all these crosshairs that I was telling you about on the video clip. So what you want to do is you want to select the area that you want to put your text inside of. Well, not inside of, but where you want the middle part of your text to be. So what I usually do is hit Control and just create a little shape where you want that text to be. And you can see that that text, it was kind of skewed off like that. You don't want that, because then your text will be facing the way that the target is facing. So if I can just incorporate more of these, you'll see that now we have a better one. It's not perfect, but it's better. So we right click, create null and camera. Now we have a tracked null position right in the center of that box that won't move, because obviously it's tracked to the video. That's what we just did. So now we have this spot selected. We want to put text on this spot. So now what we do is we go into this open area like anywhere down here or up here, layer, new. They both do the same thing, right click, new, layer, new. For this, I use right click because that's just what I default to. So layer, new, solid. Make sure it's comp size. You can spam comp size if you want. It's usually is always comp size. It's whichever one you've used last. I use these a lot, so it's always 1920 1080 black. And now you can see that it's covered up our video, and that's because the black solid is above our video. You can see that if I drag this down here underneath the video, there's not a black screen because the blacks like layers work on whichever is top is displayed first. So if I drag this back up here, it's now black, but this is where we add our element. So we right click on this solid and we go to effect and we go to video copilot and then your element. And this will bring your video back. And right here is where you would create the text that's going to go in here. So you want to do the exact same thing, right click new, but go to text. And now let's name this tutorial. And you go back into your black solid. Now you go to custom layers, custom texts and masks, and create the path layer 1 as tutorial. The exact same thing that you've just made right here. It's going to go black again, but that's because you've used caps. Right here, if you look, it says refresh disabled, release caps lock to refresh view. Just hit caps lock again, and it will come back, just like that. This obviously is not tracked yet. This will just move around like that. What you now have to do is go to custom texture maps. Drop this down, and in layer 1, you don't touch anything in here except for the layer 1. Go to none and make it the video file that you have at the bottom. Steamy stacks. Now, if we go into scene setup, or actually no, first we scroll all the way down to the bottom. You just drag all the way down. Render settings, physical environment. This override layer option, you also want to make this the same as you made the texture map, the Steamy Stacks, your video file. And what that does is it makes it so that your text reflects the colors and the video around it. So let's say I had a chrome on top of this tutorial, it would reflect the pink and the purple. Well, actually it wouldn't reflect the purple because it's underneath it, obviously. It would reflect the pink on top right here. So let's do that actually. So we go into scene setup now that we have all our masks selected, and you hit extrude. Now we have our text here created into a basic 3D model, but we need to change this 3D model to look a lot better than this, because this looks like crap. So you go into your extrusion model, extrusion, the bevel copies. Make this 2. This is just for a simple one. If I were making a more in-depth, you can go all the way up to 5, but I'm just doing 2. And now you want to click the arrow beside extrusion model and go to the second bevel, which is the one that you will want to drag backwards in the space. And you go to the Z offset. This is where it sits. This is the Z offset for the entire model. This is the Z offset for that particular bevel copy. So I like to make this negative 0.8. At 1, it drags it apart from each other, and anything below 1, it's still touching. So I find negative 0.8 to be a nice little middle ground to use. Now what you do is you go back into your presets, physical, chrome. Drag chrome onto your first bevel because it's the one in front. That's the one you want reflecting things. So now you can see you have a reflective material right there. And if you turn on environment with this little checkbox right here, you can actually see what's sort of around it. If you look down, it's skewed because it's taking like a strange perspective picture. But you can see that it's reflecting the color around it. And if I were to drag it that way, because that part is gray, you'll see a silver that way. So this looks okay, but it still doesn't look very, very great. So you want to drag a black gloss onto your bevel 2, the one behind it, and now you have a layered chrome and black text. But you can see that it still doesn't look amazing, so we can further refine this by clicking back on our chrome option and drag our expand edges down a little bit. You can see that creates a little layered effect there within the two bevel copies, but you can still see that it looks a little bit funny because the pink is just about as big as the black. So what you want to do is you want to take your extrude and you want to make it 0.6. And now that will just shrink down. That will just shrink down your top bevel so that it's not sticking out as far. Now when you click OK, you will have this, and there's no 3D text, but that's because where you selected, it looks like it's in this box, but it's actually further up the stack. So if I go through this where it comes up the stack, you will start to see that right there. It's just too high, right? So now what you want to do is you want to go back into your track null and click P on your keyboard to open up the position of the track null. And within this, you have X, the X plane, the Y plane, and the Z plane. So what you want to do now is go back into your black solid and open up the group 1. Then open up a particle replicator. And now right here, you have the same X, Y, Z as you have right here. X, Y, Z. They're not the same values, and that's why you see the text way up there when the mark is down here, because these are not the same values. So what you do is you go into your track null, and you just copy these three. Click, Control C, click, Control V, enter. Click, Control C, click, Control V, enter, and then repeat for the third step. Click, click, Control V, enter. Now you can see that our text is now properly, well, in the right like XYZ position, but it's not in the right rotational position. So what you do now is, actually, you can see this tutorial getting way in our way. This is as easy as clicking on this eye of the tutorial layer, because that's the text layer, and it will just hide that visibility. So now you go back into here. This is actually a little bit loud. Go back into here, go into rotation, go to Z rotation, and just make this look straight. So I'd say that's sort of straight, 41 probably. Perfect, that's straight. And you can see that it's still a little bit too small though. So you go into your particle look. Yikes, no it's not. Go into particle look and you make this, let's say 35. Now when we look at this and we scrub through it, now our text stays in the correct spot and in a reasonable spot. It's not way up here along the top line of the stack. It's at the bottom, at the spot where I wanted it to be. I actually created a perfect track null, which doesn't happen that often. But let's say it weren't a perfect track null, and when I copied these into here, this was actually like over there or something like that. So once you have your text sort of in the spot that it's supposed to be, you can now refine it by first using the text position and then copying these values into the track null. So like, say I actually wanted that a little bit further down in there, like that for some reason. I've now perfected where I want my text to be, but it's now not going to be in the same spot as the track null, which will make it move. Not that much, but it makes it move slightly. So what you want to do now is find the position that you changed, select it, copy, and paste it into the track null. Now this is the new tracking position, which is fine. It looks pretty good either way. So now that we're through the 3D tracking part of how to do this, let's work on making it a little bit better, making it look a little bit better. So if I drag this to the end where I can see a lot of the other parts of the scene, a lot of the different colors, this is where we can start to work on a color correction. So what you want to do is you want to go layer, new, and then adjustment layer. You want to drag that on top of everything, and you want to add curves. It's right here, it's under color correction. Just drag it onto your adjustment layer. And it doesn't do anything when you first drag it on because you haven't changed any of the values. But when you go to the channel, you drop it down from RGB and just select these three. You don't worry about alpha or RGB, just these one after another. So open up red, And here you make slight S curves. You do not want to make them too big or else it will look ridiculous. So make a little S there and a little S there. Perfect. Now green, do the exact same thing. Up, and that'll make it look ridiculous, but you drop the shadows down, and wow, all of a sudden it looks great. Now you drag the blue up with it, and the shadows down. And now you're left with something that looks like this. And you're probably thinking like, oh, I can't really tell the difference because the last part that I saw was so long ago. So the way that you can look at the changes you've made is just to turn on and off the visibility of the adjustment layer at the exact same way I turned off the visibility of the tutorial layer. So if I turn this off, you can see the bland colors that it was originally. It looked good originally, but that's just because you didn't know what it could have been. And now that it's like this, all bland, the colors are, this almost looks the same color as this, and the whites are the same, and the blue is not very poppy. But once you turn this on, like, wow, this becomes a blacker gray than this, which makes it easier to see that that is the ground. This becomes a brighter white. This becomes a brighter white. This becomes a brighter sand, and the water looks a lot nicer. So let's just turn that off and then back on once more time, and you can see exactly that it creates something that looks really good. So now that we're through with this, I'm going to show you how to have a little bit of fun with the letters, like I like to try to do. So now that you're back in here, you select your black solid layer again, and you go to your effect controls. Now in here, you're going to go back into the same spot where you changed the location, sort of, but it's down further. It's down in this multi-object option, and you want to enable it. Now what you would do is you select these two. These are the only two that I use anyways. So let's say I wanted this to be like 0.5 displaced, and let's start it off at 60 skewed. Actually, let's make it 80 so that you can really see the skew. Perfect. All right, so if I now drag this through, it stays the same the whole time, but if I was to keyframe this, keyframe the two that I just made, so with these little stopwatch icons, so stopwatch, stopwatch, it created two keyframes at the start of the video. Drag it to the end of the video, and now change this value to whatever you need it to be. 0, I like just to make it back to normal, so that when you start it, it starts off skewed, and then as it goes along the clip, it comes together, and it also becomes unskewed. It becomes straight up and down in the rotation, just like this. Now when I play this, you can see that it comes together. All right. So from here, we're going to bring this back to 0, this back to 0, and I'll show you how I do the rotation that I do. So let's say for some reason you wanted something where this spun around, or something like that for some reason. This is where you would keyframe your Z, because the Z is what makes it tilt left and right, like that. If I undrag it, you can see it is now flipped over, and if I put it back to 0, it's now flipped back over. I'm pretty sure I had it at 41 degrees. And keyframe this and drag it to the exact same as that keyframe. And now let's bring it to let's bring this 1, because this 1 signifies one complete 360-degree rotation from 41 degrees to 41 degrees again. So now, if I drag this back, it is now spinning like this. And as it gets toward the end, it completes the rotation like that. And that's just a simple little tutorial on how I create the things that I made, especially the one for Sky. So if you enjoyed, drop me a follow if this is on Insta, subscription on YouTube, like and comment. And if I missed anything or you want me to go over anything more in depth, just message me on Instagram or YouTube or whatever, and I'll get to that. All right. Well, thank you for watching this tutorial, my first tutorial ever, kind of impromptu. I was just asked to do it. And yeah, all right. Have a good day.